Studienti, dobro poželovat v Россию. By the way, I apologize in advance to all my Russian-speaking students and parents because I'm pretty sure I butchered that. But what I should have said, if I actually got that correct, would have been students, welcome to Russia. So we are going to be doing the exact same thing that we did in the Germany video and the United Kingdom video. We're going to do a brief overview of Russia's government, who is the leader of Russia, how does the government operate, what does it look like. But first of all, remember, Russia is our largest country. So largest country on earth. Remember what we talked about with population distribution? 70% of Russia's population lives in Western Russia, in the European side of Russia. But Russia covers both, I shouldn't say it covers, but it's both in Europe and also in Asia. Again, Russia, largest country on earth. We're going to take a look at its government. So you guys ready? Well, even if you're not, I'm still going to turn it anyway. So here we go. First of all, I did want to show you this. This is in Red Square. Now, someone did a panorama shot, so it's not like it's going to look exactly like this. All the buildings are going to be next to each other, but they took a panorama shot so they could actually show you, try to get some of the iconic buildings in Moscow into one picture. So this is in Red Square. So if you go to Red Square, it won't be in a line like this, but these are some of the most famous buildings in Red Square. So from here, this is the Spasskaya Tower. I believe, if I have that pronunciation correct, it's the Spasskaya Tower right here. This is St. Basil's Cathedral. So this is actually a church, Russian Orthodox church. So this is not like some sort of Disneyland, anything like that. A lot of times students see that and they're thinking, oh, okay, this is some sort of playground. Nope, this is actually a church, even though I think, if I remember correctly, I think this now more operates as, like it's not an actual church in the fact that you don't have people going there every Sunday, but instead I think this operates more like a museum or memorial. But this is St. Basil's Cathedral. By the way, I'll check that out. I'll put some information in the description, but if I remember correctly, I don't think they're doing Sunday services or things like that anymore. But this is St. Basil's Cathedral. Over here, way to that side, you have a little glimpse of the Kremlin. The Kremlin is where the president lives and does business. This would be the president of Russia, lives and does business, okay? So saying the Kremlin in some ways would be like saying, oh, the White House. Okay, this is where the president works. The president of the United States works in the White House. The president of Russia works in the Kremlin, all right? So a little beautiful picture of the Red Square of Russia in panorama view before we move on. So let's go. All right, so Russia's government. Now, this is where I need you to listen carefully. Russia has a representative democracy. So we're going to start out with just saying, okay, Russia's official government is a representative democracy. Now, how many of you guys remember what a representative democracy is? Well, if you didn't, you can look back at some of the early videos on government. But representative democracy is where the people vote for the person instead of the political party. You know, think to the German government video that you watched yesterday. If you remember, people voted for the political party, and then whichever party won, their leader became the Chancellor of Germany. Well, in a representative democracy, by the way, Germany, that's why Germany is called a parliamentary democracy. In a representative democracy, you vote for the person. Remember we said when you vote for the person, a lot of times that means, hey, it's a winner take all. So this isn't, you don't get any points for second place. You have to win. So Russia has a representative democracy. People vote for the person, not the political party. Now, we have to think for a second. Because even though this is the official title, Russia really isn't a representative democracy. Because this guy right here, his name is Vladimir Putin. He's the president of Russia. He kind of acts more as a dictator. Now, Russia does have elections, but not, when I say he tends to win them, it'd be one thing if you're just really popular and you just won every election. But it's that most of his political opponents end up getting thrown into prison, or a huge scandal happens controlled by the president right before the election results. And also there's a lot of accusations of the vote being rigged, okay, or the elections being rigged, meaning that basically he's kind of controlling the election, and so he's going to win anyway. So we'll go into a little bit of that. So on the surface, and sometimes you'll see this with countries where on the surface they say, hey, we're this. And it looks like, oh, they're a representative democracy. That's really cool, just like the United States. But then once you dig under the surface, you look and go, I'm not sure that this is exactly the way democracy works. This looks more like totalitarianism, and that's really what Russia's government actually is. In theory, in name only is what we'll say, in name only, they're representative democracy. By the way, when someone says in name only, what they mean is, oh yeah, that's what people say, but it's not actually what they are. So in name only, they're representative democracy, but in reality, Russia really has a totalitarian government. And so this guy is kind of the dictator, and he looks like he'll continue to be the dictator forever, right? Because all the rules are rigged in his favor. And not only that, but kind of give you an idea of kind of his attitude, how he sees himself. Every year, the Russian government puts out a calendar of Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia. And yes, listen, I don't make up this stuff. His calendar normally has him shirtless doing manly things. So he's shirtless hunting. I don't know why you have to be shirtless to hunt, but that's kind of how he views himself. And unfortunately, this is the best way to kind of give you an idea of what his attitude, how he views himself. So Russia is a representative democracy, name only. Please, as usual, make sure that you are writing this stuff down because, again, this is the stuff that will appear on tests, and you need to know it helps you to remember things. It helps you to remember the facts, I should say. Things helps you to remember the facts. It is really totalitarian. Make sure that we have that down, okay? So, representative democracy, name only, really totalitarian. All right, Russia's government, again, as I said before, this is how he views himself. I didn't take these pictures. I didn't make it up. This is just welcome to Russia, all right? Or I should say Russia's government. Vladimir Putin is president of Russia. He was first elected in 2000. At first, when he was elected, it was 4-year terms, all right? He came in right after the death of Boris Yeltsin, who we'll save a lot of that information for when we talk about Russia's transition out of communism, all right? But he came in after Boris Yeltsin. 4-year terms, technically, if you look at Russia's laws, you're only supposed to serve 2 terms. It says no president can serve more than 2 back-to-back terms. Well, what Vladimir Putin did was he said, well, you know what? Since I'm at the end of my 2nd term, it's back-to-back. Well, if I take a term off after those back-to-back terms, then technically it's not back-to-back anymore. That's not how the rules are supposed to work. It's supposed to be 2000 to 2004, well, that's his first term, then 2004 to 2008, and then he's supposed to be done. But he's like, well, if I just take 08 to 012 off, then it's not back-to-back anymore. So yes, I can do this. And so basically, that's what ended up happening. So his vice president, a guy named Dmitry Medvedev, he basically took over. Dmitry Medvedev was president of Russia from 08 to 12 in name only because his vice president was Vladimir Putin. All right? And so everyone knew that Vladimir Putin was really calling the shots. This is what I'm saying when I say that people say, okay, yeah, I know it's representative democracy in name only, but this guy, again, he has a very high opinion of himself. I didn't take these pictures. What can I say? But you can kind of tell what he thinks about himself. See, I'm almost speechless. Point is, he kind of finds a loophole, puts his own guy in as president, makes himself vice president. And then after 08 to 012, then he runs for president again. And he has the legislature, which is really under his control. All right, so again, the legislature really isn't independent of the president. The president controls most of the members of the legislature. The legislature then votes to give him to make the term 6 years. So now not only does he run for election in 2012 and get elected, he now extends it to 6 years. So he served a 6-year term from 2012 to 2018. Then he got elected again, and now he's serving from 2018 until 2024. And basically everyone believes that the rules are just going to be changed to allow him to keep on running and winning. As I said before, if you ever follow Russian elections, anyone who tries to run against him, they always amazingly find themselves arrested for having committed a crime or some sort of scandal or something happens, so that basically he ends up winning. So that's why we have down here, elections in Russia tend to be rigged. So there's no reason really for me to go into the legislature of Russia, because the legislature is controlled by, guess who? This guy on the horse, Vladimir Putin. So the legislature is controlled by him, the court system is controlled by him, and he controls all the elections, so that no matter who's running against him, they always end up in trouble, and so he always ends up winning. That's not a representative democracy at that point. That's what we call totalitarianism. And so, again, you need to know Vladimir Putin, president of Russia. You need to know, I gave you kind of the really quick version so that this wasn't 20, 30 minutes, because we could have gotten a lot longer getting into some of the details of the election. But what you need to know is Vladimir Putin's the president of Russia. He's pretty much president for life. So just because you call yourself president, if you're president for life and basically nobody can get you out of office, that's not a democracy, even if you call yourself a democracy. All right. I mean, imagine think about it. If you're thinking, well, that's how can they do that? Guys, people do that all the time, right? Imagine if I came up to you guys, hey guys, my name's Mr. McGee. I'm Japanese. Well, I can tell you I'm Japanese all day, but am I Japanese? No. Can I ever be Japanese? Absolutely not. So just because I say that I'm something doesn't mean that it's so. So just because Vladimir Putin says that he's president, well, if you look and realize, he's actually a dictator because he controls everything and he's changing the laws to kind of keep him in power, then you know that he's really not a president of a representative democracy, but instead it's really a totalitarian government. And so we'll go into a little bit more detail when we get to the history section. We'll talk about Russia coming out of the czars ruling Russia into the Russian Revolution, and we'll talk about all these things because this guy's kind of old school from the Cold War days, and so he kind of wants to bring Russia back to power. We'll talk, when we get to the economic system of Russia, we'll talk about his influence and Russia's influence on Europe and how that works, especially with oil. But for the most part, there you go. So if you don't remember anything else besides those pictures, hopefully you weren't eating while watching this video. Hopefully you remember, and you should write down, what is Russia's government? It's a representative democracy in name only, but it's really totalitarian, okay? And then you got all the kind of history, the little brief history of how he's ended up continuing to be president to this day, okay? So if you have any questions or you need therapy or something like that, then yeah, conference with me, okay? So take care, guys.